Well, our lead story tonight, Priyanshu is here reporting on the Q1 GDP figures, which is good news for India. Priyanshu.
That's right, Sonia. A very impressive figure of 13.5%, double-digit growth. But let's tell you both the good and bad about these figures that have been released. It's the highest GDP growth that we've seen in a year. India's economy grew by 13.5% in the last quarter. That was from April to June. It's the highest quarterly growth that we've seen in a year, but it has sharply missed RBI's estimate of 16.2%. So this might impact RBI's annual growth estimate of 7.2%. As well. We'll see whether that happens. But this is the second highest quarterly GDP growth we've ever seen. As you can see in that graph, it's the highest growth recorded that we earlier saw was 20% in Q1 last year. And after this, it's this 13.5% figure. But the growth is on a low base. Remember, this 13% is in comparison to April to June last year when the second wave hit India and the economy was, of course, disrupted. But good news is that the quarterly GDP growth figure has finally surpassed pre-pandemic levels. The GDP absolute figure has surpassed pre-pandemic levels, even though by just 3.4%. Quarterly GDP is now almost 37 lakh crore compared to 35.7 lakh crore before the pandemic in 2020. So we've definitely surpassed the pre-pandemic figures. Now, what's behind this GDP growth? Private consumption is up by 40% compared to the same quarter last year, while gross fixed capital formation is up by 31%. One sector that has performed really well is agriculture, forestry and fishing. The sector's gross value added has doubled to 4.5% from 2.2%. But the manufacturing sector growth is disappointing and that's lagging. It has slowed from 49% last year to 4.8% this time. But if we talk about the overall GDP figure, India is certainly recovering. We performed better than even China as well for the 4 quarters out of the last 5 quarters. China's quarterly growth slowed to 0.4%, while we grew by 13%. The data for growth of the 8 core industries has also been released, and that has slowed down to a 6-month low of 4.5% in July, down from 9.9% in July 2021. So a mix of really good and bad signs on the economy. There are signs of recovery as well. There you can see the comparison with China. As I said, we've performed better than China in the last 4 quarters out of 5. So definitely signs of recovery, but the recovery is well below estimates.
Right, Priyanshu, thanks so much for that update. So very interesting figures to track there on India's economy. But let's just go across the other big headlines, and that's really from Bengaluru to Benaras, cities underwater. In Bengaluru, what's perhaps worst is that the IT corridor, the high-tech corridor, which really is the Silicon Valley for the entire world, is still waterlogged. 3 days later, the Bengaluru's high-tech corridor is still underwater. Meanwhile, in Varanasi, cremations are being held on rooftops because the ghats are underwater. Also in Bengaluru, a 132-year rain record is broken. All more signs of the climate change, which is becoming a climate emergency around us.
The IT corridor in Karnataka's Bengaluru, famous as the Silicon Valley of India, now struggling with basic infrastructure. What were meant to be perfectly tarred roads look instead like waterways.
Outer ring road, I think this southeast side of the ring road is notorious for being low-lying, filled with the highest taxpayers in the country.
Local leaders and all people should take care, they should come and visit at least. They should not be sitting in their home, and so some people are saying they should not be doing like that.
They're witnessing, overflowing, especially of stormwater drains, lakes breaching, and then overflowing especially to the roads. Several of the traffic volunteers trying to help people wade through this knee-deep water.
Another heart-rending scene in the high-tech city. The body of 86-year-old Srinivasa Rama Rao had to be carried on a makeshift stretcher as family members waded through above knee-deep water. Several parts of Bengaluru have been flooded after Monday night's heavy rains. Bengaluru received over 16 centimeters of rain in a single day, a 132-year-old record, according to the Met Department. A yellow alert has been issued till September 1st.
This is the condition over the last 2 days. Where exactly are the officials? Now that is the question tax-paying citizens of Bengaluru ask. In Bengaluru, Shrija for NDTV.
A red carpet over floodwaters for UP Chief Minister Adityanath as he inspected flood-affected areas in Prime Minister Modi's Lok Sabha seat, Varanasi. While rainfall in Varanasi has been 22% deficient this week and 11% overall this monsoon, mirroring the rain deficiency across UP, rains upstream have caused the Ganga to overflow, submerging parts of Varanasi, mostly its low-lying areas, including the famous ghats. The flood has forced the shifting of cremations at the famous burning ghats, Harish Chandra and Manikarnika, to terraces.
संकट के समय में पूरी सरकार और प्रशासन आपके साथ खड़ी है। ये आश्वस्त करने के लिए आज मैं आपके बीच में यहाँ पर स्वयं उपस्थित हुआ हूँ।
The water level of the Ganga, however, is decreasing now in Varanasi. So far, 32,000 people in 20 city areas and 136 villages in the district have been affected by the floods. A little over 4,000 people have been shifted to relief camps. Across UP, 2 lakh people are affected by floods in 22 districts. With Ajay Singh in Varanasi, this is Alok Pandey, NDTV.
The other story we are tracking is of suspended BJP leader Seema Patra, who brutally tortured and abused a tribal woman working at her home. Today, she's been arrested. She's been sent to jail for 2 weeks, saying it's a conspiracy. But now details are emerging of how it was her own son who actually saved this tribal woman, complaining against his mother's torture of the help. Sunita's the teeth were broken. She was forced to lick urine. She was kicked. It is the son who spoke out. He spoke to his friend, a government official who filed the complaint, which saved Sunita and has put Seema Patra in jail today.
One is a friend of mine from my college days, from 2002. We were in BIT Mishra in mechanical engineering department. So I was a friend from 2002. He called me and he was like, his voice, his pitch was very, very high, and he was telling me, Baski, please save that girl. So I asked, what happened? In the meanwhile, his mother, she also called me. So I put his phone on the hold, and then I talked with her mother, Seema Patra. Then she said, Ayushman is not in a good mental state and he's like acting violent and all. Seema Patra was assaulting her in worst terrible way. I was outside the house, but not inside. I was outside.
And what did you see when they brought her out?
Well, like I couldn't see much, but yeah, forces went there. They did talk for 1.5 hours, something like that. And then Sunita was rescued. And I was not able to see Sunita get rescued, but since I was a bit far, I went the RIMS where she got admitted. So I went there. I met her. I was like very emotional. When she told me many things. You have seen the video. It's like very touching. I couldn't stop my tears. I asked, "Do you know me? I'm Baski, Patra's friend." And she said, "Thank you." And the way she told me thank you was like, I was in my tears. Yes, I was touched. I think that she was she knew that someday his own son will get into this, and her political image will be tarnished or something like that.
Seema Patra says she's innocent, but that brave man talking also of how it was Seema Patra's son who actually had the courage to speak out against his mother and saved that young woman. Meanwhile, moving to the political news, well, the opposition's road to 2024 beginning from Bihar, as 2 chief ministers met today. KCR, the Chief Minister of Telangana, met with the Bihar Chief Minister Nitish Kumar. They both met. Tejasvi Yadav was also there for the lunch meeting, and at a joint press conference, Nitish Kumar said, "Why are we talking about the third front? We're the main front." This as Sushil Modi hit back, saying, "Forget PM, Nitish won't stay Chief Minister in 2024.
He's talking about main front. Where it is?
जितने भी विपक्षी दल है देश में, सारे एकजुट होकर, ताकत जुटाकर, शक्ति जुटाकर बीजेपी मुक्त भारत का नारा देना चाहिए और बीजेपी मुक्त भारत को हासिल करना चाहिए, तभी देश फिर से खड़ा हो सकता है, आगे बढ़ सकता है।
और अगर केसीआर और नीतीश जी में हिम्मत है तो हिमाचल का चुनाव है, गुजरात का चुनाव है, लड़े, दिखा दें अपनी ताकत वहाँ पर, तो मालूम पड़ जाएगा कि गुजरात और बाकी में क्या स्थिति है। नीतीश जी आप किसी से भी हाथ मिला लीजिए, 2024 में आप न मुख्यमंत्री रहेंगे और प्रधानमंत्री बनना तो दूर की बात है।
And Bollywood and the rest of India is also celebrating the first day of Ganesh Chaturthi celebration. So both Pooja and Uma join me. Pooja, over to you first, because of course Mumbai, this festival is really the heart of the city at this time.
बिल्कुल सोनिया, महाराष्ट्र का जो गणेशोत्सव है वो सबसे बड़ा पर्व माना जाता है। लालबाग के राजा सबसे पहले हम दिखा दें हमारे दर्शकों को, क्योंकि इस पंडाल में दर्शकों का पहुंचना, लोगों का पहुंचना, श्रद्धालुओं का बहुत ही मुश्किल माना जाता है इस पंडाल में। और अब देखिए लंबी यहाँ पर लाइन आपको लोगों की दिखेगी। मेरे बाईं तरफ आपको हम दिखा दें ये जो लंबी कतार है लोगों की, कोई यहाँ पर सुबह 4 बजे से खड़ा है, 4-5 घंटे से इंतजार कर रहा है। मैडम आप लोग कहाँ से आई हैं? घाटकोपर से। कितनी देर से खड़ी हैं लाइन में?
2 घंटे हो गए मैम।
2 घंटे। अच्छा, इतने सारे पंडाल हैं यहाँ पर, करीब 250 ऐसे हैं जहाँ पे बहुत बड़ी मूर्तियाँ हैं, लेकिन सबसे पहले लालबाग के राजा के ही दरबार में आप लोग आती हैं?
जी, इनकी बहुत बड़ी मान्यता है और काफ़ी आशीर्वाद है, इसलिए आते हैं दर्शन करने।
सर आप लोग कितनी देर से खड़े हैं?
हम लोग 4:30 से आए थे, तो अभी तक यहाँ तक पहुँचे हैं। और अच्छा व्यवस्था अच्छा किया अंदर, कि जो पब्लिक एकदम आराम से सब दर्शन कर सके, अच्छा व्यवस्था।
अच्छा, 2 साल का एक लंबा इंतजार था लोगों के लिए, पंडालों में जाने की इजाज़त नहीं थी, इस तरह की बड़ी मूर्तियाँ नहीं बन रही थी। 2 साल के बाद अब क्या आप लोगों के अंदर क्या भावना है गणेशोत्सव को?
बहुत अच्छा महसूस हो रहा है, भगवान को देखकर अभी खुशी महसूस हो रही है कि अभी कोरोना गया और अभी पब्लिक को ऐसे मतलब भगवान से मिलने का अवसर मिला।
और अब ये भी मुझे देखकर अच्छा लग रहा है आप लोग सब यहाँ पर प्रोटोकॉल फॉलो कर रही हैं, मास्क में हैं। कुछ और लोगों से बात करते हैं। सोनिया, मन्नत के पापा माने जाते हैं और बहुत लोग यहाँ पर कोई शादी, कोई बच्चा अलग अलग मन्नत मांगता हुआ नजर आता है। आप लोगों की क्या मन्नत है यहाँ पे? क्या मन्नत?
मैं बस अपने घर वालों की खुशी चाहता हूँ, अपने पापा की खुशी चाहता हूँ, इसीलिए।
और सोनिया, एक तस्वीर आपको हम दिखा दें। महाराष्ट्र के पूर्व मुख्यमंत्री उद्धव ठाकरे और आदित्य ठाकरे इस वक्त यहाँ पर पहुँचे हैं दर्शन के लिए। ये तस्वीरें आप देखें तो लालबाग के राजा के दरबार में जो 10 दिन का ये उत्सव है, यहाँ पर लगातार सेलिब्रिटीज पहुँचते हैं, नेता पहुँचते हैं और उद्धव ठाकरे, उनसे हम कोशिश करेंगे सोनिया बात करने की। अगर
Yes, go ahead, Pooja, if you can try to see there's some political blessings needed very much this time for the Thackeray clan, but this really is a time when forget politics, everybody there is a devotee today at Ganesh Chaturthi festivities. And Pooja, you go ahead and try to speak to them. We'll go across to Uma in Secunderabad. So Uma, from Maharashtra to Andhra Pradesh to Telangana to Karnataka, across India really, these celebrations bring everyone together, whether it's the VIPs, whether it's just the ordinary citizens, asking for blessings as they begin any auspicious moment.
Yes, indeed, Sonia. Ganesh Pandals are really a time when politicians also connect with people and people connect with each other. And this is a Secunderabad Ganesh that we are talking, one of the most important Ganeshas that you will in fact say. This is called the YMCA Ganesha in fact, and huge numbers of crowds here. COVID very much in fact forgotten, and the interesting part of course are the modaks that are being lined up here, and the sweets that have been kept here, the halwa which is kept, and also curd rice is also considered special. And because this is COVID time, people are not thinking about wearing masks or something. That's something, a thing of the past. People are coming with their with the kind of enthusiasm that you saw prior to the last 2 COVID years. In fact, all that forgotten as prasad also being distributed with no thought about the kind of regulations that we saw in earlier years. What I must also point out is that while in Hyderabad there's a huge enthusiasm, the numbers of pandals in fact have doubled this time round from about 98,000 prior to COVID years to 2 lakh almost that we are seeing pandals this time round. गणपति के दिन अभी इस बारी कोविड के बाद बहुत enthusiasm ज़्यादा है।
ये सब अच्छा हो रहा मैडम, अभी कोविड कुछ नहीं है, अब भगवान को बहुत अच्छा है हमारा।
So, yeah.
111 kgs laddu hai, last din action hoga.
Okay. One of the traditions that we find in Hyderabad, in fact, is the auction of the laddus, Sonia. And this one, of course, is a 21 kg laddu, but the biggest of those laddus is 111 kgs, is it? Okay, 111 kgs laddus is what we are talking about, and these are auctioned and the person who pays the highest price for it considers it very prestigious and then distributes it among everyone.